What's going on, everybody? Wilson here, your spiritual hype man. Super happy to be back. Feeling great again. It's a great feeling to feel that way, and I hope you're having a great day. And if you're not, just remember it's the thoughts in our head, and we just got to figure out how to turn them off. We got to figure out the different prompts, different questions we got to ask ourselves, or kind of like what I was going through in the last couple of weeks, just a little bit of funk. You just got to live in it and try to do these things and be conscious of like the moments that we're feeling this way. And really be, within yourself figuring out what do you have to do, like what are the steps you got to take. So, I did some mountain biking. Obviously, if you haven't heard that episode, definitely tune into that. Went on a motorcycle ride. Took a break from, the everyday of just like, let's go, let's get it. I feel great. I'm back to playing soccer. So it feels pretty awesome to be back. So, for this episode, I want to talk about and just jump in the macro level, right? So the macro sense here is, if you haven't listened to episode 5 is about my abusive mom, and really I would highly recommend just listening to it because it was a moment of perspective for me that has changed my relationship with my mother in regards to how I feel about her, the things, growing up, how I felt resentment, how I don't feel that way anymore, and just like that type of perspective. And so back then, a couple of years ago, I had this conversation, and it was just an epiphany of understanding her perspective and really asking myself, is this something that I think I could have done better? And then understanding that, right? Since then, our relationship has gone like 100 times better in terms of just how we talk to each other, the phone conversations, and everything like that. Most recently, though, I've had I went to really just get some feedback. Like it was a moment of going and hearing some like different perspective about something that I was asking for. It was almost like a meditation type thing, right? Where I was asking these questions and then, really just getting some answers, like, whether it was the energy or whatever it was providing certain things that were touching base on some of the questions that I had. And one of them was still saying, or it was implying that there's still a lot of stuff that I need to figure out between my mom or with my mom or whatever that was in the past, right? Between the ages of like 16 and like 27. So that whole time of just whatever that relationship was. And so for the longest, well, not for the longest, but my first initial reaction was more of how can that be? Like a couple years ago, I've already had this conversation. I've forgiven her and I've forgiven the whole thing, right? I've forgiven and I've moved on, and our relationship is better. So how am I still holding on to something, or subconsciously or unconsciously? I would say subconsciously because I'm conscious of it now. Holding on to this thing, like what was I holding on to, right? Or really, and this is what it was. Okay, so the macro is, I've realized that even though I've had that epiphany and I had that point of perspective back way when a couple of years ago with my mom, the fact that I lived through my environment was influenced by her for a long period of time, that created a system response within myself, right? In certain situations. And because I lived this, like, and it's very much in terms of what we live in every day, how we grew up every day, like what that influence was, and then how you as the individual, like, filtered through all this or are filtering through it in this current situation, and then figuring out, like, and then reacting, for the most part, very reactive, right? Because we live in this like high emotional state. So like most emotions, if we're like in this high emotional state, and whether it's, whatever emotion it is, but like a super high, almost frantic level of that type of energy or emotion, it puts you on this more of reactive, like the fight or flight, right? Like it's just you're very reactive, and so there's an auto response, and so that was my aha, that was my epiphany, which is like, holy shit, it's not the like forgiving her, because that aspect is already done, but it's more of like really being aware of how am I feeling, how am I reacting to all these situations around me, right? Like my external factors of influence, and how am I reacting, or how am I feeling in in all situation, and particularly like thinking about situations that one, I don't feel good, I don't feel happy, I don't feel like I'm good at, like, and this is what I've realized, it's there's moments of I don't feel good enough, like I didn't do enough, like what I needed to do or for the person or my expectation or whatever it was. And that I had a lot of that growing up for a minute, when it was like, hey, I did this, but oh yeah, but why didn't you do this? Or like, hey, I'm class president, baby. And then, she's like, yeah, but you didn't graduate top 10%, even though I was like, I don't know, top 20, or some shit like that. Look, you can look it up, facts. but that's but I would say that's the thought. So the thought was like, wow, there's plenty, like when I feel low and when I don't feel like how I'm feeling now, there's moments where I've identified what that feeling is. So, or where it also came from, like not feeling good enough, like I did good enough, feeling nervousness or anxiousness, like growing up, there's lots of that, because there was moments where it's like you're living in a good day and things are great, and then one thing set somebody off. Usually it was my mom, and that sort of turned things to shit, which in parallel have been things that I've done or that I've been like in certain situations previous in the previous years, like even 5-6 years ago. Like there's still moments of that where like we can go do these different things. Like for me, all right, so for me it was going to the beach. Like I remember or weekends sometimes, but the most distinct memory is we used to go to the beach every weekend because Pops loves fishing, is still a fisherman. And for the most part, we would just go to the beach because we hang out. Everybody loved the beach, and then Pops would love to fish. And like there was like moments, and it's funny because like if I look back to like in our relationship between Patty and I feel like there's been a lot of cycles of like a really good time, like there's no issues, no like confrontation or anything or nonsense or bullshit, and then all of a sudden you get into the like a couple of days or weeks or however long it took you to kind of get out of that funk. Then it's this between people, among the relationship. But there was a moment, like a stretch of moment, that like every time the weekend came, and when I was like, oh man, I can't wait to go back to school. Like I just couldn't wait till school started, because like in this particular case, every time we went to the beach, there was always some fucking problem, and then there would be a blow up, and then like who wants to be in the back of a truck listening to a fight, or knowing that your parents are like not happy, and there's like this low energy, there's just this whatever fucking energy. So I don't want to say hate, because it's also the same type of vocabulary, like in terms of anxiety, right? But for an easy vocabulary definition, just like not like overstimuli, I think, of thoughts, and then create this like overstimuli of energy. And so not knowing whether there's going to be that type of argument, or like we were going to argue if there's just going to be some sort of like, nonsense, really is what it is. And even talking about it now, I can like, and like thinking about it, I can feel like I'm tensing up. Like I can feel tensing up right now, and then just trying to like, I don't know, trying to change it is what it is. So that was the aha moment, that it was more of like step one was forgiveness, or letting that shit go, and then step two is like going back to figure out what are these automatic responses that we have in terms of how we think, how we filter our emotions, and then how we like act and how we do things. And so I've realized that those are certain subconscious things that like I was not in my forefront aware that I was doing things like that, or I was feeling like this, or that was my auto response to certain situations, which is it's kind of, it's kind of, when you think about it, it blows my mind. And so now I've been the same thing. It's like going to the Jedi Mind Master Gym and just pushing these fucking reps and being like, okay, how am I feeling, checking in, and then where does this feeling come from? And then how can I prompt myself? It's the same, it's all the same stuff. How do I prompt myself? How do I ask myself, or how do I identify inside my head saying, hey, this is what's happening right now, and this is connected to, part of your past childhood stuff, it's like it's time to let it go, like work through it, analyze it, think through it, and then tell yourself like, hey, no, you are enough. Like you are. So the things that I say to myself, this is what I say to myself: I am good enough. I'm not doing anything wrong, and that's it. Like I am good enough. I'm not doing anything wrong, and what can I do better? Really, those are the three things that I've now, when I feel any certain way, is like if I don't feel good enough, or I feel nervous. Like sometimes I feel like there's a like a level of nervousness / energy that I've like converted into like high energy, right? Like it's just that's that same type of fuel. It's just like it's there. So what I'm trying to do and what I'm working on is when I feel this way, whether it's anxiety or like not good enough or like scared and nervous if I'm doing the right thing, not saying the right thing, like that's how I grew up, right? Like, and I've realized that I now tell myself, I'm like, all right, I am good enough. I think about the situation, I'm like, I'm fucking good enough, man. Look at all these things that we've done. Like, look at everything we've accomplished, and so that's a good perspective to potentially think about. What are some things that you have like an automatic response at that you may not be like conscious of, or it just lives in your subconscious, things that you've dealt with in your previous childhood or a couple of years ago, maybe with another, somebody else in a previous relationship. It's like, it's, think about it this way. It's like having a dog or an animal and like beating it every day for 10 years and yelling at it. And, and maybe not all the time, but like predominantly, like how do you think that animal is going to react? Like, and then let's say all of a sudden we change the environment and you go into a different environment, like it's going to take time for that animal to like be reinforced that they're no longer in this crazy environment or this, environment that I described before just a few seconds ago. But from there, it's going to take the animal time to be positively reinforced. And it's only going to happen as long as, one, there's a prompt, right? There's like a cookie or a hug or whatever, more often than like a yelling and a screaming or whatever that is. And so that's where I'm at now. I'm training myself because I have the awareness to think about, why am I feeling this way? Where does that come from? Did I feel this way in my childhood? And how many times did I do this? And oh my God, it makes sense. But guess what? I am good enough. Here's my treat. Here's my, positive reinforcement. I'm not doing anything wrong because I'm not. And there's always good intention. And I deserve it just like anybody else. Like, right? So there's all these things that now I'm very conscious and aware. So I hope you are too. You know what I mean? Like this is raw and real in terms of like what I've been thinking about in my head for the last couple of days, and it's helped, right? It's helped me understand that, one, it's okay. Two, we all have to put in the work. Like once you realize what it is, it could be that it's not that for you, or it's something else, or you know what I mean. I had a conversation today with someone who shared the same thing, like back and forth between him and his parent, and the parent's just like, I just want you to listen because I don't want you to, the same cycle that we all have gone through. So we've all have a couple of years of a parent or whoever's raising us of influence. So based on that, there's going to be some sort of something that you need to figure out after you leave, the 18 years or however many years you're in that situation for, with influence constantly of how to be, like what type of dog or what type of animal to be when you get out there. All right. Well, I hope that makes sense. Keep crushing it. I appreciate you guys listening. Stay tuned and share. Like it's, I think it's going to be great when there's like, man, I used to listen to you, or not even me, but listen to the show, right? I'm excited for the progress of the show, of the community, of whatever happens with NCUID. I think, I don't want to say I think, that's what I'm saying. Like, I know I know now it's still something great, right? So to be, an early adopter in Bitcoin, good job. So keep crushing. I appreciate all y'all. And don't forget, nothing changes until you do. All right, peace.